PepsiCo products are consumed more than 1 billion times a day in over 190 countries and territories around the world. So I guess if you're mindful of what you consume or if you're on the fitness team, this statistic might alarm you. And I admit I was surprised by this, but we're going to focus on the business side. How could such a powerful brand, capable of generating over $80 billion a year today, have come close to extinction? How did it go from 2 consecutive bankruptcies to an empire that now owns giants like Lay's, Tropicana, or even Lipton? Why did Coca-Cola, its eternal rival, refuse 3 times to buy Pepsi when the brand was on the brink of the abyss? Hold on tight, because this story, it's not just a battle between fizzy drinks. It involves political intrigues, like this incredible negotiation with the Soviet Union for the purchase of an entire fleet of military ships. Controversies, spectacular controversies that sometimes ended in tragedy, or a miscalculation on the price of sugar that almost ended in disaster. Let's go. Picture a tiny town in North Carolina in the late 1800s. The paved streets are filled with carriages, and the scent of medicines and syrups permeates the air in 1983. Caleb Bradman, a young pharmacist, dreams of creating a revolutionary drink. But Bradman is not just a simple potion seller. He has a bold vision to invent a beverage that is both delicious and beneficial for health. At that time, American pharmacies are much more than just places to sell drugs. They are real social centers, meeting points where people come to relax, exchange news, and taste freshly prepared sodas. It's in the back room of his pharmacy that Caleb, like a modern alchemist, embarks on experiments as crazy as each other. After months of trials, he creates a unified formula, a clever mix of caramel, rare essential oils, and natural fruit extracts. Initially, this drink is simply named Brad's Drink, Brad's Drink. The success is going to be immediate. Customers will flock to taste this refreshing sweet soda that appears to have digestive benefits. In 1898, Bradam will rename his creation to PepsiCola. This name is not random. Pepsi comes from the Greek word pepsis, meaning digestion. Bradam believes his drink can soothe mild tomatoes, while competing with the giant you all know, Coca-Cola, which was launched a few years earlier. If you want to know more about Coca-Cola's history, mention it in the comments. Encouraged by this enthusiasm, Bradam makes a crucial decision. In 1903, he will abandon his small pharmacy to open a real production factory. By 1904, PepsiCo rapidly expands nationwide, selling over 20,000 gallons of syrup across 24 states. Everything appears to be going great for Bradam, but a disaster is looming on the horizon. The First World War breaks out, and the price of sugar is going to skyrocket. Bradam, believing the price increase will persist, plans to purchase large amounts of sugar at exorbitant prices. At the war's end, its price plummets from 22 cents to a mere 3 cents per pound. Pepsi is going to end up with unsellable stocks and colossal debts. The financial disaster is inevitable. In 1923, Pepsi goes bankrupt. Bradam loses his business, his fortune, and his reputation. At 53, he must return to his former pharmacist life. However, this is only the start for this company. In 1923, Pepsi is therefore bankrupt, abandoned by its founder, who is ruined and desperate. But at that precise moment, no one would have bet a penny on this company. And yet, against all odds, Pepsi is about to experience a spectacular rebirth. The story begins in 1931 during an economic crisis with Charles Gutt, the president of Loft. Candy, an American confectionery chain, decides to buy the remnants of Pepsi for a song. His main goal is not to compete with Coca-Cola, but to offer a cheaper soda option in his stores. Charlie Gutt, a shrewd businessman, had impeccable timing. He saw opportunity where others only saw ruins. That's a great lesson for entrepreneurs. There, he has the brilliant idea to revive Pepsi. At the time, Coca was selling its 177 milliliter bottle for $500. Gutt will therefore decide to double the volume of Pepsi by offering a 355 milliliter bottle at the same price of $500. Can you imagine the reaction of consumers in the midst of the Great Depression? For budget-conscious Americans, Pepsi is the go-to drink when every cent matters, and it's effective. Beyond all these hopes, Pepsi quickly regains ground, but despite its rising sales, it remains a fragile company. Its success will rest on a single pillar, which is price. Consumers will buy Pepsi because it's cheaper, not out of loyalty. The company's finances are still shaky, and Coca still dominates the market. Pepsi needs a savior, a solid investor. Despite its growth, the company is urgently seeking a buyer, and surprisingly, it's reaching out to its sworn enemy, Coca-Cola, incredibly. Yet, on 3 occasions in 1922, 1933, and 1939, Coca systematically refuses to acquire Pepsi. At the time, it was seen as a brand with no future or strategic interest. I'm spoiling the ending for you. It's a decision that Coca's leaders will bitterly regret. Sometime later, realizing that they had missed a golden opportunity to permanently get rid of their competitors. This is similar to Microsoft's strategy, which they regularly apply, such as with Skype, which I recently discussed in a video and has now been discontinued. You can find it in the description. Pepsi's resolve to rebuild and become one of Coca-Cola's fiercest rivals was fueled by the latter's rejection. Another marketing masterstroke completes the brand's revival. The launch of the famous PepsiCola hits the spot, the first radio advertising jingle, in 1939. It's very short and catchy. It immediately gets into the heads of Americans and definitively puts Pepsi on the map. Revigorated Pepsi is going to challenge Coca-Cola on its own turf, declaring an open war that will last more than a century. By the end of the 1930s, Pepsi is back in the game thanks to its attractive price and bold advertising campaigns. And from the 1940s, the company therefore adopts a very aggressive strategy. Instead of avoiding Coca, they decide to confront them head-on. The slogan, "twice as much for a nickel," is going to attract consumers and force Coca to react. For the first time, they are feeling the pressure rise. But the story is going to take a completely unexpected turn in the 50s when Pepsi hires Alfred Steele, former vice president of Coca-Cola. This sensational recruitment brings Pepsi valuable expertise on its rival's strategy. Steele rapidly transforms the company, wagering it all on Pepsi's glamorous image. He even hires his wife, the famous actress Joan Crawford, as the brand ambassador. Pepsi immediately becomes Hollywood's favorite drink. Joan Crawford, with her elegance and star aura, will give Pepsi a sophisticated and desirable image. So it was at this time that the Cola War really began. In 1975, Pepsi launched the famous Pepsi Challenge, a revolutionary marketing campaign where consumers were invited to taste Coca and Pepsi blindly, then say which one they preferred. The result surprises everyone as Pepsi often wins, sowing doubt in the minds of Coca-Cola loyalists, who will react quite clumsily by creating New Coke in 1985. Which is a total marketing disaster that disappoints its own consumers, who will be forced to demand the return of the original recipe. But this merciless war between the two giants, it will soon take an even more unexpected turn. Because Pepsi is about to extend its influence well beyond American borders, including to places no one would have imagined. What if I told you that at one point, Pepsi almost became one of the world's largest military powers? Incredibly, that's precisely what occurred during the Cold War, beginning in 1959. Donald Kendall, the future chief executive officer of Pepsi, strategically offers a glass of Pepsi to Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev at an American exhibition in Moscow. This simple diplomatic gesture, it opens a door that until then was locked. Pepsi becomes the first Western brand to establish itself in the Soviet Union. A problem will quickly appear. The Soviet ruble, a currency with no international value, cannot be exchanged on global markets. How can Pepsi recover the money it will make in the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics? The solution found is quite surprising. Rather than being paid in currency, Pepsi receives in exchange Stolichnaya vodka. Pepsi then becomes the exclusive distributor of this Russian vodka brand in the United States. This unique agreement allowed Pepsi to overcome financial limitations and gain a lasting presence in the Soviet market. But this solution did not suffice for long. By the end of the 80s, vodka was no longer selling well enough in the United States. To make the deal profitable, the Soviets needed to offer Pepsi something else. And hold on tight, because their proposal is completely surreal. In 1989, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics therefore offered them a real military fleet, which included 17 submarines, a frigate, a cruiser, and a destroyer. The worst part is that Pepsi will likely accept this offer, which is completely crazy. Become on paper at least the sixth world military power in terms of submarines. Luckily for all, especially Coca-Cola, Pepsi will promptly sell its ships for scrap metal. This transaction, which is still worthy of a James Bond movie, shows the audacity and ingenuity of Pepsi to penetrate the new market. But Pepsi will soon experience another scandal, even more dramatic, with tragic consequences. A scandal so explosive that it could have permanently ruined the company. Having endured economic turmoil, rivaled Coca-Cola, and even bartered vodka for Soviet submarines, Pepsi considers itself unbeatable. But in 1992, a monumental scandal almost annihilates everything by turning a completely harmless marketing operation into a real tragedy. Pepsi is launching a promotional campaign in the Philippines called Number Fever. The principle is simple. Under each bottle cap, there is a number, and every night, a number. The winning number is announced on television, offering up to 1 million pesos, a substantial sum at the time, sparking an instant craze. The Philippines will flock to Pepsi bottles, hoping to win big. The success is huge, and all seems to be going flawlessly. Until May 25, 1992, when a fatal computer error announces 349 as the winning number. Surprisingly, a manufacturing error printed the winning number on a whopping 600,000 bottles. Imagine the scene of hundreds of thousands of Filipinos who think they have become rich overnight, rushing to Pepsi's offices to claim their winnings. But the company can't pay. The mistake would cost over $30 billion, enough to completely ruin the company. The disappointment is going to be huge, and as you can imagine, the anger even more so. Riots will break out across the country, Pepsi factories are set on fire, trucks explode, and clashes with the police will cause the tragic death of 5 people. The country is plunged into chaos. Trust in Pepsi is completely broken. How could such an experienced brand make such a mistake? And above all, how is it going to survive such a catastrophic scandal? After lengthy trials and intense negotiations, Pepsi will only pay symbolic sums to the victims. However, its reputation in the Philippines will be forever marked by this tragedy. This event, it left a deep scar in Pepsi's history, reminding of the disastrous consequences of a simple communication error. Well, I hope I didn't make you too thirsty, and I want to remind you that sodas are far from being the best for health. If that's true, drink water. Pepsi's story is truly extraordinary. From a small American pharmacy, it has endured bankruptcies, trade wars, diplomatic crises, and worldwide scandals. Yet, each time Pepsi has managed to come back stronger and more powerful. Unlike Pizza Hut, which after dominating its market masterfully for decades, lost its throne in a brutal manner due to fatal strategic errors as seen in the displayed video.